Hey team, hope you're all doing well. Today's topic, I want to go over a question I often get asked because there's a lot of athletes out there that are trying to break the 1 hour and 30-minute half marathon. And it is, how do you pace 1:30 half marathon? And one of the biggest mistakes that we as athletes make is we get very hyped up in the early stages of our races. Okay, in the early, when the gun goes off, you can sprint practically all out for 200 meters and not build up any lactic acid. So it is very important to get out, be aggressive in the early stages of a half marathon, and then settle into your pace. Remember, you need to sustain 6 minutes and 52 seconds for 21.1 kilometers or 13.1 miles. So if you're going out running 6 teens, 6:20s in the early stages of the race, it's okay if you go out a little too aggressive, but just make sure that you remind yourself, okay, I need to sustain 6:52 mile pace for this entire race. So if I'm going out in 6:15, 6:20s the first 3 or 4 miles of the race, a little too aggressive. So in terms of breaking a sub 1 hour 30-minute half marathon, you definitely have to run at paces that are down toward around 6-minute mile pace in training. Hill training is definitely critical if you're wanting to work on building your anaerobic capability and being able to get that sub 6:52 mile pace or 4:16 kilometer pace to feel easier for you. So I would recommend doing hill repetitions, and it could be maybe 8 200-meter hill repetitions, running all out on the way up and walking or jogging on the way down, just depending on your fitness, or finding a longer hill of maybe 250 to 300 meters and doing 10 to 12 reps up that, gradually increasing your intensity on the way up until you're running all out for about the last 30 meters of that particular hill repetition. Training at paces that are down toward VO2 max is very key if you want to get that sub 6:52 mile pace to feel easier for you, or 4:16 kilometer pace. I always preach the importance of doing longer varied pace long runs on every other weekend. So the key is, don't run long, slow, and easy every single weekend. Okay, it will make you a very strong, long, slow distance runner, but you're not going for a long, slow distance time. You're going after an elite time, in my opinion. Very few runners around the world run under 1 hour and 30 minutes for the half marathon each year. And it's even more complex when you're trying to double that and running a sub 3 hour marathon. And for a lot of athletes, the first step is to become a sub 1:30 half marathoner first. And then once you've done this, then it becomes a psychological issue, really, because once you break 1 hour and 30 minutes for a half marathon, you definitely are capable of breaking 3 hours for the marathon. It's just doubling the distance. It's a lot more difficult. You definitely have to be much more patient to put two sub 1:30 half marathons back to back. Some of the workouts I was doing that helped me run a 1:07:06 for the half marathon, which comes out to around 5:07 for each mile, is I was always focused on running at paces that were significantly faster than my goal times. Like, I wanted to run a marathon under 2 hours and 22 minutes flat. So I knew I needed to hold 5:25 mile pace for 26.2 miles. So I was training at paces that were at sub 5-minute mile pace in training, so I could get that 5:25 mile pace to feel easier. It's also very important, if you're pacing a 1:30 half marathon, that you're paying attention to your hydration. This is absolutely essential. If you've made the mistake in the past of trying to run a half marathon without drinking enough and you're passing aid stations, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You have to make sure that you're paying attention to your hydration practices in training. So when you do those long runs every single weekend, start putting water bottles out every 3 miles or every 5 kilometers during your long run route. Okay, I would always drop my water bottles out every 5 kilometers or about every 3 miles during my long run, so that I would have fluid on the way out and fluid on the way back. And I would also drop gels, about 2 or 3 gels during my long runs as well, near those bottles. So I would always be practicing taking in calories as well as hydrating well during my long run. About how you hydrate and how much calories you're intaking in that race, because this is not a 5K, it's not a 2 mile or a 1 mile, which are extremely anaerobic events. This is an aerobic event, which requires a lot more oxygen capacity capability and your ability to clear lactic acid faster than it builds up. And the only way you can do that in order to pace yourself more effectively in a half marathon is you absolutely must be training at paces that are significantly faster. You need to be doing one hill workout every other week, one tempo run per week, one speed training workout per week, and one long run per week. Now again, you shouldn't be doing a tempo and a speed workout and a long run every single week. You just alternate. I would also recommend extending the duration of your tempo runs, because it is very important to work on your anaerobic capacity ability, your ability to train at your anaerobic threshold for a longer period of time. When we race half marathons and marathons, we're running at right around or slightly above anaerobic threshold effort. So that's around 85 to 89% of your maximum heart rate. So it is very important, if you want to not only pace a half marathon more effectively and to be able to run under that 1 hour and 30-minute half marathon barrier, is you have to get accustomed to running for a longer period of time at your anaerobic threshold. And early on, when you're not very anaerobically fit, it's going to be very difficult just to do a 3 to 4 mile tempo run. So get adapted to doing that first. And again, it takes about 21 days to 4 weeks for your body to adapt to any stress load you're placing on it. So it's going to be very hard in the early stages. Expect that, okay? But don't get bent out of shape mentally over it. In the early stages, when you're just building your fitness, it's important just to be doing, especially in the first few weeks of a build-up, focus mainly on just building your base mileage, being consistent with your training, and doing strides to anywhere from 3 to 6 100-meter strides twice per week during your easy running build-up, okay? First build the aerobic foundation first, then start working on your speed, then start training at extremely fast paces that are and working on doing those varied pace long runs, not just running long, slow, and steady every single weekend. And then focus on that 10-day taper I talk about. Okay, a lot of athletes are dropping their volume and their intensity too far out from their half marathon, and they go in feeling flat rather than feeling rested and energized. I believe a 10-day taper is key. Okay, 10 days is plenty of time to recover from all the months and weeks of hard training you've been doing. Mental training is absolutely essential too, and it's one tactic that I regularly teach, not only in the courses that I've created on RunDreamAchieve.com, but also factor it into all of my personal coaching as well. You have to see what you want before it actually occurs, okay? And so many athletes just focus on physical training and they bypass one of the most critical steps of training for a half marathon, especially for running a 1:29:59, and that's mental visualization. You have to see this. You have to see yourself running confident, passing people, getting across the finish line with 1:29:59 or faster on the clock. It doesn't take a lot of time to do this, 10 to 15 minutes a day. Best time to do it is practically when you're waking up in the morning or when you go to bed at night. Just spend some time, turn off all the devices, and see yourself running the way you want to run, and see yourself achieving the goals that you're dreaming about. And it has to happen here first, okay? It doesn't happen just on the track or on the roads, okay? So I hope this is helpful for all of you that are asking, how do you pace a 1:30 half marathon? I hope that some of these strategies and tactics will help you get under this barrier. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what your current personal best right now is for the half marathon. If this is a goal of yours, I have sub 1:30 half marathon training plans as well as courses available on RunDreamAchieve.com for athletes that are training anywhere from the mile all the way up to the 50K distance. So I hope this helped for y'all. I will talk to you all in the next video, and I wish you all the best in your training and racing.